Yesterday we were informed that Wolves want Craig Dawson plus one other unnamed West Ham player. I was a bit suspicious. I get sceptical about things like that. I don't like it. I find it too vague. A bit like when an unnamed Premier League club wants a certain player. Well, who wants him then? Why don't you just say it? Because you're just covering all bases here. All it takes is one of the 20 to go after him. You can say, I got that right. It's the equivalent of me ringing up Gonzo today and saying, Gonzo, in May, I've got us an interview with a certain ex-West Ham player. Oh, brilliant, Gio. Who is it? I'm not going to tell you. You'll find out in May. And then when May comes round, as long as I've got an interview with any player that ever played for West Ham, I can say, told you. I sorted that ages ago. I told you. I was right. Look. Anyway, I was a bit sceptical. It's a bit vague. But since then, it's been revealed by the likes of ex-West Ham employee that it's actually Antonio. Wolves want Craig Dawson and Michail Antonio in this January transfer window. That's the rumour. Let's discuss it. Now, I'm actually going to break this down into sort of three sections, really, while I articulate my opinion regarding the transfer rumour. We've got the player, we've got the situation that West Ham are in, and then sort of hypothetically West Ham were going to sell, and what does that look like, or what could it look like? But first, the player. And I'm not going to put in a disclaimer. Normally I do sit here and say, well, he's our record Premier League goal scorer, he's done this, he's done that. We are all aware of Antonio's achievements at West Ham and his contributions to West Ham. But the reality is, this is about what's best for West Ham today, going forward for the rest of the season. And that we would point to selling Michail Antonio, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think he's been the same striker in the last 12 months, 18 months, for whatever the reasons. Whether it's because age is catching up with him, whether it's because we're trying to change tactics. But this includes last season, before Scamacca arrived, he was going off the boil a little bit. So far this season, 4 goals in 22 games. If we want to take just the Premier League, he's got 4 goals in the last 34 appearances. Now, 25 of those is a minimum 45 minutes. So he's had plenty minutes. Like I said, this goes back to the end of last season as well. And to be fair, he scored in the Europa League knockout stages. He's got a couple of goals in the Conference League and the League Cup this season too. So he has still contributed, but I just feel his level of performance has dropped quite a lot compared to where it was. Certainly at the start of last season, that 3-4 months when we were performing really well, Antonio's performances were up there. He was a big part of the reason that we played well. And even in some of these games where he hasn't been scoring, he's still performed well. You could go look at some goals that likes of Jared Bowen have scored, and Antonio's had a big hand in it. He doesn't get the goal, he doesn't get the assist, but his movement to create the space for Bowen has been pivotal. So he's been a tremendous player for us. I said I wasn't going to do a disclaimer, pretty much just done one, haven't I? But my point is, he's been the perfect striker for David Moyes, but I feel his performances in the last 12 months haven't been up to scratch. And when I say up to scratch, I mean West Ham level, Premier League level, and Michail Antonio level. I don't think it's as good as it used to be. And there's possibly more reasons than just one. But I do think a large part of that is just possibly age just catching up with him. He turns 33 in March. He's no spring chicken anymore. I don't think he's as fast as he once used to be either. And I think that's starting to impact his game. And it's sad to see to some extent. When we played Brentford in the Cup, he was just largely ineffective. When you see him take that air shot the previous game, again, it's sad to see. Would I have sold Antonio in this transfer window? I wouldn't have actively gone to try and sell him. I wouldn't put him on the transfer market or anything like that. I'm more than happy to keep him around. We've discussed this. I would like to see a striker come in, and it means you can use Antonio on either wing if you want to, or as a striker. It just opens up a vast amount of options for utilising Antonio. But the reality is now we've got a club knocking on the door saying we want to purchase that player. And I think that changes everything now. That completely changes it, because now if he's wanted by Wolves, it means we can add a couple of million to the price tag. It means that we are in the position of strength when it comes to negotiating here. And like I said, 33 years old. If we don't sell now, it's unlikely we get a fee for him in the summer. Now, possibly West Ham were to get relegated, and the reality is we could do that. He might actually be necessary for next season playing in the Championship, because given his age, he'd probably stick around. But this season we've been told he's unhappy for whatever reason. I assume it's due to lack of game time. I don't really want to suggest it could be anything else, because that would just be speculating and possibly incorrectly. But it came out last night that Dawson and Antonio are unhappy for different reasons at the minute. we know why Dawson is. He wants to move. He's away from his family too much. We know that. But with Antonio, it's not really been specified. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'll just give it the benefit of the doubt. It's just due to lack of game time, due to lack of starts in the Premier League. He's had 17 appearances in the Premier League this season, 10 off the bench, only 7 starts. And that's when Scamacca's unavailable, essentially. It's not because he's picked ahead of Scamacca, it's just Scamacca is unavailable, so now you start kind of thing. So in terms of the player, selling him today, I'm up for that. I am. Like I said, turns 33 very soon, and at the minute, ineffective. But it's not as straightforward as that. This is why I'm splitting into 3 sections. Now let's move on to the next one, which is the situation that we are in. Obviously, we're in a relegation battle, but more importantly, possibly, Wolves are in a relegation battle. Now, their manager will know Michail well enough. We played them twice last season, played Sevilla twice last season. He was their manager. We obviously put them out the Europa League. Antonio was fantastic. Antonio was brilliant against Sevilla. Now, to be fair, every player was, but he was essential to the way we went about our game plan. When we went there, we lost 1-0. I say on purpose. I think we went there knowing that if we could come back with a 1-goal deficit at worst, we had a chance of winning at the London Stadium. He was crucial. He was absolutely crucial. There's no other striker that could have played, well, there possibly is, but certainly to my knowledge, there's very, very few strikers that could have played that role as good as he did, that's seen us have success. And this performances came in the period I'm talking about, where there's a lack of goals from him. He still performed fantastically well. So it's no surprise that the gaffer, Sevilla gaffer, went, he's a bloody good player. Who's that? I wouldn't mind a bit of that. Whether it be at Sevilla, now he's come to Wolves. As I said yesterday, there's reports that Wolves are trying to get in more English players into their squad. So it's ticking a few boxes as far as he's concerned. But is it wise to sell to a relegation rival? I mean, not really, is it? We were obviously in this situation, the opposite last season, when we wanted Jesse Lingard, and we got told, no, you're not getting him because you're a rival to Man United. You know, we're both in the same, in and around the same league position. They turned out to be correct. We weren't far away. Was it 2 points we were behind Man U come the end of the season? So had we got Lingard on loan and picked up 1 additional win, we would have finished above them. That would have been embarrassing. And we're now in this situation where, well, it would be quite embarrassing for West Ham if we were to sell them Dawson and Antonio. We got relegated and Wolves stayed up. All it takes is Antonio to score 2-3 goals between now and the end of the season, and that could be the difference between 3 points and 9 points, winning instead of drawing all 3 games. So it would be a massive risk to sell him to Wolves. If a team like Fulham or Brighton came in, I'd be more keen to sell Antonio. But given that it's a club literally beside us in the Premier League, it just increases the risk of this transfer. And I sort of ignored it to some extent when discussing Craig Dawson yesterday, because like I said, I feel like Dawson wouldn't be their first choice centre back. I feel like Kilman and Collins are their first choice partnership. I think Totti looks quite good as well, so I don't know if Dawson would be their third or fourth choice centre back. So I almost think, well, perhaps he wouldn't impact Wolves that much. But with Antonio, he would. They're really struggling at that side of the pitch. They've obviously got a couple at Anfield though, but their attacks needing something at Wolves at the minute. Diego Costa's not quite working out as centre forward, unsurprisingly. You know, Podence is looking good though. Neto's injured again. I haven't seen him for a few games. And Guedes hasn't quite worked out as well as they'd hoped. So they do need something up that side of the pitch. So I could see Antonio going there and almost starting immediately for them. You can imagine the amount of baby oil getting used, can't you? Adama Traore, Michail Antonio lined up, ready to come on, all baby oiled up. They're just going for pure pace and power with them 2 substitutions. It would be chaos, but it would be good to watch. But anyway, so Antonio to Wolves, that part, not keen on. But then we get on to the third part, which is, I guess, the club. What could the club do? What will the club do? And this is going to apply quite a lot of pressure to David Moyes, really, because it's money for a 33-year-old. I know he's not quite 33, but just bear with me. It's money for 2 players that are essentially 33 come the end of the season, Craig Dawson and Michail Antonio. Now, how much would we get for each? I think this is part of the problem. I don't think you're getting very much for Dawson. You can command a little bit more from Michail Antonio, given that he's a striker and that we're not really under pressure to sell him. There's a bit of pressure on Dawson. 6 months to go on his contract, wants to move up north. So we're a bit, that situation's different. With Antonio, there's not really been any talk that he's demanding to leave. He's got another year on his contract after this season as well, so there's not that much pressure on West Ham to sell him. But I think that pressure comes if Wolves hypothetically do bid 8 million or whatever for Antonio. It's difficult to put a price on him. I reckon 8 to 10 million is what the fee would be roughly for Antonio, and that gets tempting because, and this is remove the fact that it's Wolves, okay? Just accept West Ham in a relegation battle. Someone is bidding for Michail Antonio. That's the situation we're in, hypothetically. I would sell him again because for too long I criticised the way we go about selling our players. It's something I've never understood. Whenever a player gets linked with a move away for West Ham, you just sense this panic from the club. It gets leaked out, oh, he's not for sale, he's going nowhere, this, that, the other. Rather than just accepting that every player's got a price and planning for what you're going to do if you're going to sell that player. And we just hold on for players too long. We just hold on to them, and they could leave and their legacy remains intact, but they always stick around for a bit too long, so they become the villain. Their legacy's gone a little bit, and if Antonio was to stay another year, you'd imagine by the end of it, he's almost a bit of a hindrance rather than anything. You're looking at him thinking, God, can we get this guy on high wages out the team, please? And it just ruins everything that he's achieved at the club. And for way too long, I've criticised the club for the way they've sold players. It's never, do you know when people talk about net spend and say, oh, well, look how good West Ham, look how much money West Ham spend, look at their net spend. I think, yeah, but that's not good. That shows that we're poor at selling players. It shows that we spend money, but it also shows how poor we are at selling players. Look at Vlasic, you know, we're selling for 12.5 million or something. And this is an opportunity which is unexpected to cash in on somebody and essentially recoup what you paid for him. We paid about 8 million for Antonio, didn't we? So we pay 8 million. We have that Antonio for, 8 seasons now, 8 years now we've had Antonio, and then he goes. That's fantastic business by West Ham to I know it's not as straightforward as this, but essentially get your transfer fee back. I think it'd be wonderful business. You know, we are poor at selling players. The guy at Wakey Wines is better at marketing and getting money in than West Ham are when it comes to selling players. So in regards to this one, I'm open to it. But the big problem is replacing Antonio. We all know it. It's the big problem. Would we replace him? Well, we'd have to. 100%. I felt we need another attacker anyway with Antonio at the club. Part of that is because of Antonio, because of his lack of goals. I thought, right, we could do with somebody else here. But certainly we would need to replace Antonio and probably Pryor, but as soon as you do that, you probably knock a couple of million off the price you can demand from Wolves. If only there was an injury-prone striker that can score goals, and I'm not going to mention any names, but what if there was an injury-prone striker possibly available in January transfer window that scores goals independent, that has a really good, that has got the 7th best goals per minutes ratio in the Premier League this season? What happens if someone like that was available? I'm not going to mention any names though, but I do think he's replaceable. He is. But would we replace him? I'm not confident. I'm not. I'm really not confident. 8 million, let's say 8 million, it's not much, is it? It doesn't give you that much wiggle room. Obviously, if we were able to sell Vlasic as well, suddenly it's 20 million. That opens up a lot more doors. Ben Bertrand Diaz becomes realistically achievable. But I think this problem here is we know what was going to happen. We know what will happen. We'll sell Antonio and we'll chase Yusuf En-Nesyri for the rest of the window, and we won't get him. And the window's shut, and we'll have Scamacca, and that's it. We can see it a mile off. And for that reason, I'm inclined to say I wouldn't sell Antonio, partly because of the relegation rival, but I do think Wolves will stay up anyway. However, the more you can kick them into trouble, the better. But partly because of that, but mainly my lack of faith in the club adequately replacing Michail Antonio is so low. I don't think I'd sell him. I should be sat here saying yes, get him sold, because like I said, I think he's not the same player. To get a decent fee for him as well, I think it's a no-brainer. But because I'm not sure we'd replace him adequately, I'm going to say no. If we got somebody in prior, then yes, sell him, let's get the money in and let's go again. Because there's a big rebuild coming at West Ham, even if we stay up. All you have to do, I've covered it months ago, the contract situation regarding Soufal, Lanzini, Fabianski, Creswell, which is being sorted now. Commentary, there's a lot of players leaving in the summer for free. David Moyes complained this season, oh, we had to bring in 9 in the summer. Well, to prevent doing that, bring in 2 or 3 this window, then you only have to bring in 5 in the summer instead of 8. So we need to do business this window, almost just to prevent us doing it in the summer. I appreciate what people are going to say. We don't know what league we're going to be in. But for this window, we have to assume we're going to be playing Premier League football, and we've got to do business which ensures we are playing Premier League football. Selling Antonio and bringing in a better replacement would go a long way. Selling Antonio and not replacing him, well, that goes a long way for Wolves and for us possibly getting relegated. It's a big call, this one. I think this one's riskier than Craig Dawson. Anyway, let me know what you think. That's my thoughts. My very, very quick conclusion is I wouldn't sell him because I don't think the club will replace him adequately. However, if we brought in somebody like an injury-prone Premier League proven scorer before, then I'm all for selling Michail Antonio. Thank you for your service. Been a tremendous striker while you've been here. Tremendous winger. An adequate right back at times as well. But not quite the same player in the last 12 months. If you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it. Like I said, get involved in the comments. I'm looking forward to know what your guys' thoughts are on this subject. Subscribe if you're new around here. I'll catch you in a bit.